It's time to start. And thank you everybody for joining our seminar. So my name is Dadali Kurmanovic-Ute, and today will be your host and moderator for the seminar. And today's topic is pitching with confidence. So let's start first with introduction and round of short presentation by speakers. As further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is an author of 2 books, Pitching for Life, published in 2019, then Pitching with Confidence, that to be published in 2021, June. Then the speaker is actually, and the mentor for early stage entrepreneurship and presentation skills. Has approached over 10,000 people and lectured in 30 plus countries in schools and universities, quite impressive, I would say. Also adapted coaching styles that is learning by doing and building confidence in exercises. Has background in entrepreneurship, hospitality, I think this should be highlighted, executive education, and has been designed world-class entrepreneurship programs and courses. So very warm welcome, Walid, and thank you for agreeing to share your knowledge with us. Yeah.
Since we have a lot of people, I would like to just introduce my name and I will go straight to the presentation. While I will do that, could you please type in the chat where you're from? Like the country, the city, and also type, what do you think pitching is in your own opinion? And while I'll be loading my slides, we could read some nice, you can spam the chat, just type where you're from and then what pitching is, like what is the definition of pitching in your eyes? And we can start straight after that. So I'm sharing now my slides. Helsinki Uni, pitching is a short talk. From Oulu, Finland, pitching is selling ideas and clearing your thoughts, your ideas. All right. Just for you to remember me a bit more, my name is Walid, first name Walid, and last name El Sheikh, so Mr. Sheikh, if you want to address me formally. My friends, they address me as Willy, like Willy Wonka. Okay, so I got an idea a little bit about what pitching is to you. So why I asked you this question, because in order to do something with confidence, you need to understand what it is. Turkey, pitching is being able to explain what we are doing and what our purpose is in a clear way and in a very short time. All right. Yes, I was saying that in order to do something with confidence, you need to understand what it is, you need to understand how to do it, and maybe it's important to understand why you do it. So what and how? So what is pitching? And this is in no way scientific. This was not scientifically proven. This is from all my practices, like Dovil said. I've been coaching in 30 countries and I've been coaching, I think 10,000 people. That was the last time I stopped checking. Like just this year, it was maybe 6,000 already. So simply put, a pitch is a presentation where you ask something. Just that. If you don't ask, it's just a presentation. Let's play a game. I'm going to engage you very soon, so I would like you to be ready. And the 4 pillars of a pitch is clarity first. If you don't communicate clearly, people will not follow what you're saying. Simplicity means that it's your job to make it understandable for the audience. A lot of researchers, engineers, they complicate things. They forget that it's all about the audience. Specificity, if you don't tell me if this is an electric car and not a gasoline car, and you just say it's a car, you're not specifying. So it affects my way of understanding your pitch, and also it creates this illusion in my mind. And differentiation being different, being funny, being useful, being helpful, cheaper, whatever. Differentiation is very, very important for argumentation. So I told you we're going to play a game. I would like you to type in the chat the number of balls that you see on the next slide as soon as you can. So this is a speed test. So 3, 2, 1, I want you to type the number. Dovil, you can play too. All right, so there was a 9. I saw the 9 and 11. Nice, and 8. So this is an example of too complex slide, and people are perceiving information in different ways. So some people say 8, some people say 11, some people say 10. The correct answer is 10. How about now? All right, we're getting faster. Still some mistakes. All right, how about now? All right, last one. Okay, so this game is from the Death by PowerPoint by David Phillips. He's one of the people that actually inspired me to be a better coach. Whenever you're presenting, you need to consider 2 things. You want to consider that when people follow you, they have to follow you instantly. So if you communicate something in a way that I don't understand, my mind is lagging. So I'm listening to you a little bit like with the lag. I mean, I'm not following your thoughts. So I'm thinking, did she say this? Did he say that? So in real time, clarity, it's important. Everybody in the last slide typed immediately. So that was like, you have to organize your thoughts. You have to organize your slides. You have to organize the way you talk. And written is different than oral. That's very obvious. So be careful about how people perceive and hear and follow you. Those are like the basics. So it kind of summarizes these 4 pillars of pitching. And why do we ask? Actually, we ask because we want to get something. When you're pitching, you want to get something. So you present and you ask. So here's a hat, buy this hat. Here's a hat, give me feedback about this hat. Here's a hat, give me funding for the hat. Here's a hat, wear it. So if you are parents and you want your kids to wear this hat because you want to save their lives from the cold or you want them not to get sick, the ask is different. So whenever you're building a pitch, you start with the ask. And I'm teaching you now pitching not only for investors. I think Chiara is going to tell you about how to pitch to investors. I'm teaching you how to pitch for life, how to pitch for daily situations, how to pitch anything. Though everything I'm telling you now applies to any situation. You deliver the message. So here's a hat. Then you tell me arguments. If you want me to buy the hat, the arguments are different than when you want me to give you feedback for the hat or wear the hat. So you want to be smart and wise like that to use the right arguments. This is a nice tool called Why Do We Exist? This is from my book, Pitching for Life. I start with the ask always. What do I want to get? Who am I pitching to? And what am I pitching? And the why is basically philosophical. Just a quick example. Here's an investor. I want €1 million. I'm pitching my company. And the why is basically, if I get the funding, my company will grow. Here's my girlfriend. I want her to marry me. I'm pitching our life together. If she says yes, I'll be the happiest man on the planet. Here's a student. I want him to download my book. What am I pitching? I'm pitching my book. Why? Because it could help you, whatever. So you can use this for any situation in life. Here's a friend. I want the friend to come with me to the bar, have a beer on the terrace. I'm pitching this fun experience, whatever. So you do this because you want the arguments to be the right ones for this scenario. If you don't do it, you risk to have very shallow, irrelevant arguments. And I see that a lot, and it tortures me and it bores the heck out of me. So don't do that. When I coach someone and they have the wrong arguments, I know in 5 seconds if someone didn't put an effort in their pitch. And now it gets a bit more interesting and more difficult. In a 60-second pitch, you can say up to 160 words, and it's up to you to decide those words. Some of those words are important. Some of them are called noise. I'm going to explain the word noise. And I also coach the 8 seconds pitching, which is 21 words. And it has the message, the arguments, and an ask in 8 seconds. And 8 seconds is very important in today's world because we're busy. TikTok has 15 seconds. YouTube, you can skip in 5 seconds. Samsung is doing 7-second ads on Instagram. We are living in a busy world and there's no more time to waste. You want to go straight to the point and deliver the message straight away. And usually what stops us from pitching is our mind. We are shy. We are not taking it seriously. We don't care. We something like the mindset is the worst for me. I start with the mindset when I coach someone. So the way I do it is I tell people that every pitch is an opportunity. Every pitch helps you to learn. You are allowed to do mistakes, but you have to make an effort. So like Deadpool says, maximum effort. And you don't need to be perfect, but you need to make maximum effort. The content is the actual words. This is a bit harder than the mindset, even though people think like, oh, I'm just shy or I'm nervous, whatever. But the content is the hardest one. And then delivery. And I never work on delivery with anyone before we do the first two steps, mindset and content. Because delivery, there's no point working on the delivery if you don't have a good content, just so you know. And a lot of people try to cut corners. They're like, I'm going to be like sexy on the stage and boom, I'm going to create this funny delivery thing. But if the content is suffering, is not good enough, no matter how good your delivery is, you're not going to win. You're not going to get to what you want. Sometimes you do, but that's an exception. All right. What is the worst thing in pitching is not to pitch. Basically, if you want to get funding and you don't approach an investor. The second is to be perfect or aim for perfection. There's no such thing as a perfect pitch. And while waiting for the perfect pitch, you spend 2 years and you don't pitch. That's, I don't know. I never had anyone that I coached that fails on pitching. So they usually fail, for example, that they have approached it wrongly or the implementation was too slow, too whatever. And then you don't need to be perfect to be good at pitching. And not to maximize is the last one. Not to aim for max or not to have max as your best friend in pitching. So max or maximizing your pitch means that you show the value to receive value. So if I want my kids to wear a hat because it's cold, I tell them, hey, it's cold outside. You don't want to get sick. Wear the hat. Or here's a hat. People like it. We can sell millions of it. Please invest in this. So the argument, the value is that the first one is you will be warm. That's the value. The second one, there's some kind of profitability in this, or this hat is in demand. So we can, if you give us the funding, we can make more hats and sell more. So there's something there. Or this hat is really cool. Buy it, something like that. So you want to show the main value in your pitch. And it has to be clear, simple. It has to be specific, and it has to have an element of differentiation. The biggest mistakes in pitching are you have the wrong logic. So if you're doing a pitch to a customer, but you're talking about profitability, that's the wrong logic. The noise means that you actually talk in a way that people shut down, don't listen, or you have, if you can say something in 5 words, but you end up saying it in 12 words, you risk that people will get exhausted to listen to you. So you want to simplify your language. You want to speak to me like a 5-year-old, like a friend, versus like a marketing professor, marketing or academic. Even when you're trying to pitch a research, you want to simplify it as much as possible so it would be clear first, easy to listen to. And focus means that your arguments have to be in the right direction. So there's a structure you follow. So logic up, noise down, focus forward. And the biggest challenge is when you're pitching is you need to grab someone's attention. That's first. You get them interested, and then you eliminate all doubts that is in their mind. People forget the doubt thing. Like eliminating doubt is the hardest step. For example, why should I wear a hat? It's not that cold. Or I don't believe that this hat is that warm. So whenever you're pitching, don't forget that people will doubt everything you say. So your arguments have to be spot on. And pitching, as a summary, it's informative first. You give me information. It's memorable. You want it to be memorable. You want people to understand. And it has to be concise, meaning no noise in your pitch. It's your job to persuade, not vice versa. And it's your job to build trust on a human level. So I think the last message I would give you is practice. You will not be good at pitching if you don't practice. And practice on people versus yourself more. You can practice by yourself, but practicing on people, you can read their emotions and you can see how good you're doing.
And now I'm really happy to introduce our second speaker, who actually works as a coordinator of innovation activities at HighLife. Is in charge of organizing Why Science, an official science event of Slush focused on life science innovation. Has organized 2 TEDx events and coached TEDx speakers. Is co-founder of the Science Based and regularly coaches young scientists in public speaking. And also is about to complete her PhD in bioinformatics and cancer research. So welcome, Chiara. It's great to have you here joining us today. And congrats with the PhD.
Almost there, almost there. Thank you, Dovil, and thank you for inviting me. And thank you, Walid, for the super nice talk so far. As you said, like you gave a more general talk about pitching, while I will focus a little bit more in pitching with investors, because if you're involved in research innovation, chances are that eventually you will have to deal with investors. All right, so there's going to be a little bit of overlap with what Walid said, but hopefully not too much. So as researchers, we are very used to present our research, but pitching is not presenting, as Walid was also saying. It differs a little bit from in terms of goals and in terms of also the amount of time that you have when you're pitching. So when you're presenting, you're just informing someone, you're sharing knowledge, you're reporting your new method, your research findings, while when you pitch, you're trying to sell something or you are trying to like have a call to action. So you want your audience to react and do something because of what you told them in the pitch. Also, academic presentations are generally between 15 to 60 minutes long. Some are shorter, but on average, while pitching, you have much less time. You have like 3 to 10 minutes when you're lucky. If it's an elevator pitch, you have 30 seconds. So you really need to be like very clear, very concise, and very engaging when pitching. And I think that the general rule when communicating effectively is to also know your audience. So who are you pitching to? Are you pitching to investors? Are you pitching to scientists? Are you pitching to the general public? Are you pitching to potential team members that you want to recruit in your startup or in your research team? That's very important. Also, what is their background? Do they come from a scientific background, the same as you, a different scientific background? No scientific background at all, because if they're investors, maybe they only have a business background. So it's also important to know where you can go in a bit more in depth and when you should stay at a more general level. And what are they interested in and what can they offer you? Because a pitch is for a deal. You're asking something in exchange for something else. So what can they offer you, but also clarify what you're offering them. And if you're pitching to investors, assuming that you have a very cool research project and you are almost ready to okay, I want to commercialize my research. And you might want to license it, but you might also become a funder of your own startup. So the first investors that you're gonna encounter are likely gonna be either business angels or venture capitalists. Business angels are independent individuals who provide their own personal capital to your company, while venture capitalists generally invest capital from funds or from investment banks. And I put here a couple of examples for each. So business angels, because they are individuals, they generally try to form networks like the Finnish Business Angel Network, like FIBAN, the European Business Angel Network, IBAN. I think it's a good practice to go and check out their website and see also the type of events that they organize. They organize quite frequently pitching events. So you might want to go and interact with them and see also what they generally look for in a good pitch. And for venture capitals, I put also a couple of examples. Voima Ventures is, I think it's a Finnish venture capital focused on deep tech. So they invest in science-derived projects. And Sunstone Life Science Ventures is a Danish one. And when you think like what investors want to hear from your pitch, well, they are looking for an idea that is going to return more money than what they invested. Nowadays, there's also a newer generation of investors that are really interested in the impact of the ideas that they invest in. So they don't just want to make money, but they also want your company or your idea to have a positive impact in the world, in society, in the environment. But I would say that the underlying requirement is that your idea can make money. And your pitch is really how you stand out, because venture capitalists hear over 1,000 pitches per year, which is a lot. I think they have a callback with about a third of them, and then they end up investing in like 1 to 2%, so like 10 to 20 projects a year. So standing out in one of 1,000, it's really hard, and you need to have a very compelling story that catches their attention. So how do you practically build your pitch? So there are certain informations that I think investors are really looking for. And you can start by introducing yourself and having a logline. A logline is like a very catchy phrase that explains the purpose of your company, the purpose of your project, of your idea. Just to give you an example, when Google founders pitch Google to Sequoia Capital, they use this logline. So Google organizes the words information and makes it universally accessible. It's very clear and it's very memorable, easy to remember and easy to repeat, which means that if people can repeat it, the information spreads very easily. And the fact that it's short, it means that it can fit in a tweet. So it really can spread. Then you want to highlight the problem, like highlight the need of society or of a group of people, and really set the stage for your pitch. And after that, you want to present your solution. How are you planning to solve this problem? And your solution should also have a market. So the people interested in buying your solution, whether it is a product or a service, and what is exactly your product, and at which stage of the development are you? Are you in a phase of proof of concept? Do you already have a prototype? And what are your next steps, like implementing the product and scaling your company? Of course, you're probably not the only one in the world that saw that there is a problem and found a potential solution. So you probably will have competition. So it's important to also highlight who are your direct and indirect competitors. And also, so your direct and indirect competitors and how you stand out from the competition. So why the investors should really bet on your product. Then you want to show that you have a business model, so that you haven't only understood that there's a market for your product, but that you also know how you're gonna target this market. How are you gonna price your product? How are you gonna sell it, promote it, distribute it? So you show that you have a financial understanding of how to commercialize your research. And very important is also to present the team. So you are likely not going to be alone. Maybe you're alone in the very early stage, but then at the moment that you start your own company, you might have like at least 1 or 2 or 3 people with you. And presenting the team, investors don't invest only in the idea, they invest in the team. So you want to show that you have the technical skills, but also the entrepreneurial skills to take your idea further. And if you know that certain skills are missing, you might also want to mention that, okay, we don't yet have anybody with entrepreneurial knowledge in the team, but we are planning to recruit this person. And investors, oftentimes, they are also mentors and they help you grow your company. So they can help you recruit missing skills for your team. And then at the end, you can have your call to action, your ask. So what do you want from the investors and what are you giving them in exchange? Yeah, and then you can wrap up, maybe linking to your log line, add your contact information, because if you're in a pitching event and there are like 20 people pitching, you might want to people be able to write down how to contact you later. That was indeed a lot of information to squeeze in 3 to 10 minutes. So what you want to do is really to lighten the cognitive load. So less is more. Don't go into like all the details that you love about your projects, but they're not strictly necessary, but just try to give all the information for people to follow you. And a metaphor that I like to use, like whenever I start preparing a presentation or a pitch, it's like I'm taking the laundry out of the washing machine and I'm putting it to dry on a rack. And all my slides and all my clothes are like very heavy of water, and you want to dry out that extra water. So get rid of all the unnecessary extra content and just leave like polished slides that are easy to follow and like a clean speech that is well linked and easy to understand. And for the slides, one test that you can use is called the glance test. So you can think of your slides as billboards. And your slides should basically be understandable within 3 seconds. So having a clear layout, not too complicated images. I would not recommend using images, for instance, from scientific publications, because you might need to spend 10 minutes explaining one of them. And readable fonts so that even the people in the back can read your slides. So those are all things to think about. And as Walid was saying, practice. Practice a lot, practice alone, practice in front of people. Practicing in front of other people is very important because it really helps you find the blind spot, the jargon that you might be using without knowing it's jargon, maybe some words that you're not pronouncing correctly. I'm Italian, I have a lot of problems with pronunciation with words that starts with H that I forget somehow. So that's very useful. And also recording yourself. It's a very painful exercise. I hate watching myself speaking, but it's also very useful because it really helps you be more aware of how you talk, of how the story flows, and also maybe for your body language. There might be like unconscious movement that you have, or maybe you see that you have a very static body language, which is also not very good because gestures can really help you emphasize certain points of your talk. And also practicing, it's important to time yourself because you will have a very short time and you will need to stay within that time. So it's important to be aware. And the last thing is maybe that you can try to anticipate what questions the audience will have for you. So what investors might ask for you. And if there are things that you didn't manage to go into detail so much, but you think that a question might come up, it doesn't hurt to have 1 or 2 extra slides with more details that you can then show, and then you show that you're very prepared because I knew you were going to ask me this and I even made you a slide. In a nutshell, this is what I had for you. And then as a reminder, I would remind you to map your pitch. So have a very clear and engaging message and very concise. Know your audience and really design your pitch in a way that you're targeting them. And then to conclude, like Wally concluded, practice, 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 because it's very important and we never stop learning. And if you have any questions that you want to ask me later on, or if you need help with your next pitch or your presentation, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.